Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
All right, here we go. February already, 2024. This is Valentine's month. This is Lovers Month. This is when the steel mills and the scrap processors do need to get along, because this is Valentine's month, and I feel like there's a real strong opportunity for everybody to get along this month if the prices go in the right direction. So I'm here to promote a positive Bulls versus Bears podcast where everybody comes to an agreement that the market is up in February. Welcome, Chad.
Well, I love that. I love that introduction because if you listen to Cleveland Cliffs or Nucor's uh, latest earnings call about last year, they're in your boat. They're saying, hey, why aren't you buying our stock? Nucor is at 7.5 times EBITDA. What are you waiting on?
Yeah, I saw that somebody made that post on LinkedIn this morning. I think it was Tim, Writer Boss. I think I'm sure I'm butchering his last name, but he has some good content. Um, but he posted that clip from Jim Cramer interviewing the CEO of Nucor and basically talking about 3 years running, like year over year over year, the best year they've ever had, and I'm curious how 2024 shakes out for them. But I mean they have cornered a good chunk of the market. Was it one in every 4 tons produced in the U.S.
Well,
comes out of a Nucor mill? Is what they said.
yeah, so that's a great point. So his comments were, in the last 3 years, we've made more money than the prior 20 before that
Okay,
combined.
that's what it was. Okay,
And
yeah.
so I got to give a lot of credit to the stock market. I think it's well priced. I think the market is the smartest.
So what do they say? I mean, you can have a great 3 years, but what's year number four going to look like?
Yeah.
Well, which means just, I mean, if they've made that much money, then shit, that's just, they should be sharing that with us poor scrap guys just trying to eke out a living over here, you know? I mean, you guys are printing money. We're over here just trying to keep diesel in our Cinnabogans.
I mean, come on, Brad, just buy some stock. Buy some stock.
Yeah, I probably would have done better if I just bought stock instead of scrap, Made more money, that's for sure.
I
But
hear
I'm
you.
here to
I
tell
hear.
you, I feel like this market is poised for some good things in February. What do you think, Chad?
Let's talk about that. So I'll just get this over with.
All
We
right.
had a 1 week winter blast across the Midwest. We had followed by an icy storm, a few days following that winter blast. So tell me about flows and how bad they are.
Terrible. And honestly, like there was a 2 week period, week and a half, which was definitely due to weather. But I've talked to multiple manufacturers out there right now, and they are basically saying like it's slow, right? So industrial scrap flow is off, not even because of weather, but just for demand for, manufactured goods. So I don't know if that makes the bull case or the bear case stronger, but scrap flow is definitely feeling the weight of, a challenging interest rate market, a challenging demand market, an election year market, all those things. So scrap flows are fucking not great. And that's why I think this market should sustain itself or be stronger.
Well, I mean, let's just go over some bull cases, shall we? So, I think the overall, I mean, if you looked at the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones, and we're checking out a chart of consumer confidence, it went up, I think, around like basically 61 to 79. So people are feeling more optimistic now. This data is a month delayed, right? But
Yeah.
overall, it feels like people are feeling better today than they were, November for sure.
I like that chart. Let's just everybody's happy, everybody's confident. I mean, the stock market's ripping. Let's go.
Then we talk about the purchasing managers index. So this is really how much our managers buying, how much our manufacturers buying. We had a little tick up on that. Not much,
Mhm.
but let's just say at 47 to 50, that's about a 6% increase. So
We're
so
not
again,
quite up to COVID. COVID levels, coming out of COVID levels back into that 63, range. But I mean, shoot, like I said, it's headed in the right direction. It's headed in a positive direction.
And continue on the positive. I mean, check out this chart. You can see this is crude oil we're looking at. And so I got a red line on the left of the chart and one chart on the major. This is the monthly chart. So this is a bigger, longer extended time. It's gathering support at that 200-day moving average. So that's basically says oil is basing. So that's a good sign. Now, short term, it looks bearish if you look at the other chart, right? But only
Yeah.
bearish in that sense. It might get down to $69 ish. So
But at
I
least
think
it's
this
kind of
is
setting the floor, right? I mean, of the two charts, I mean, in the long term, you're setting a floor in the market, which tends to be a good thing. Depending on how the election goes, it could really see, you know, crude rip, but
well,
I
there's
mean,
so many. To me, this is the most important chart for 20. I think in 2024, all right, when it's over, the year's over, I think with so many uncertainties in the world, I find it hard that oil just doesn't become extremely volatile at some point. I talked to an oil producer, production facility. And they said, "Hey, we're losing money, right? Like when it gets sub three, like we can't make money. Just with
yeah,
our inflation costs are up like everybody else. So it just feels like, I mean, you got demand is slowing down, right? So I'll talk about
yeah.
that a little later, but really telling, I just feel like with all these wars, Iran, supply chain, ships being attacked, all that can wreak havoc pretty quick.
Well, and it could drive the oil price up, right? I mean, like you said, if you're setting a floor in that thing, say around that 69 area, but I mean, if you truly believe like all the volatility that's going on in the Red Sea, and then you've got, the wars that the ones about, then they're kind of sparking off. But if you just really think about, I mean, crude oil drives inflation, it drives the economy, the cost of it is drives your gasoline prices, it drives the stuff that you don't even think about, the cost of manufactured goods because it's in your plastics and your a lot of things that people aren't even aware of, right? So it's a big driver of the economy, and it's something that, like you said, it's important. I know you always discuss what the price of oil looks like, and rightfully so, because it just plays such a big part in so many facets of what we do.
Well, to me, when I look at this chart, I say, man, there's a lot of asymmetric risk to reward, meaning if you buy fuel today, let's say you have a diesel shredder, right? And you buy
Mm-hmm.
10,000 gallons today, you might be wrong by 30, 40 cents, but you might save a buck or buck 20 pretty easy too, right? So
Yeah.
it's good risk to reward. All right, so let's kind of on the scrap flows. So checking out a chart of Zorba. So Zorba increased from 75 cents to 78 cents, 4% increase. And I really think this is an indication of just how weak flows have been.
Yeah, back to supply, right? I mean, I think
Yep.
I know the tons that we've shipped, and for example, I was talking to one of the major converter processors last week, and they were talking about the volume of converters. Um, and Becky from UCC just had that article in Recycling Today as well. But I think the volume of converters being recycled and being processed right now is down significantly, and that's because car turnover has was significantly disrupted during COVID, right? Supply chain was, I mean, just virtually, you know non-existent for a significant period of time, which then drove the price of used cars through the roof because you couldn't buy a new one. And then and so we're just feeling that now, because it took a lot of potential cars that would have got turned over and went through the auto salvages, and then eventually ended up through the shredders. I mean, it took those units out of the market, and I think that that you're seeing that in the Zora prices, you're seeing that in the volume of car bodies being processed by shredders.
I think the overall they'll there's a study out there that studies the length of a car life in the United States. For the first, I want to say 8 years of my career, it always hung out around 10, 10.1. Today, I think it's close to 12, 11.7, something like that. So, like exactly what you're saying is people are hanging on to their cars a little bit longer, which just means less scrap coming to the yard.
Yeah, I mean, you basically just take that year and a half, 2 years of COVID, and you just added that to the life of the car, you know, through, interest rates, through supply chain disruptions, just through a calamity of different things. And, so you might take us a year to come through that. On the bright side, which has nothing to do with ferrous scrap per se, but they feel that, because you've taken those units out of the market, you know, PGMs had hit, I mean, in some cases, multi-year lows. And like, because they're going to be a shortage of supply, so if they do get some of that volume back into the automotive, you could see some stronger PGM prices this year on the whole, and maybe even into 2025 as they begin to need those, platinum, palladium, rhodium units into the new converter process.
It's going to be good for the guys that have a converter reclaim, right?
It could have some positivity in that. So that's the bull case.
Let's stay on the positive note. So I don't know if this is positive, but it's not negative. We're looking at heavy melt 80/20 to Turkey,
Okay.
and last month, our January 1st, we were somewhere around that 418. Today we're somewhere in that 421 range.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty relatively flat, right? And so I think that's interesting. Even with, I mean, Turkey's inflation is still,
It's
I mean,
crazy, right? I
it is,
mean,
yeah.
was it like 60 or 80%? I can't remember. It was some crazy number where you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is just the 1 month chart. It just continues to erode. So
And what's causing that, Chad? Like, do you know? I mean, I mean, that's obviously against that's the lira versus the dollar, but like, what's really causing that inflation in their market?
I think it goes back to the dog with the least amount of fleas, right? And
Uh-huh.
so that's the dollar. And other countries have more fleas, and so people pick on them first. So
Gotcha. So does that mean we'll get our turn in the barrel,
Mhm.
in your opinion, on
Um,
the dollar side, or what do you think?
I think it's uh, not that I admire Janet Yellen, but she said still, even after Russia made a lot of different changes on their oil and Saudi Arabia did a lot of different changes on their oil contracts, exchanging in yen, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're still the U.S. dollar is still 90% of all cash flows or all flows of cash around the world. So
Yeah,
good to come, yeah, good. But is it going to be tomorrow? Probably not.
gotcha.
Yeah. All right. So you ready to let's get into the bear side. What do
It's good, man. It was a great podcast. Um,
you
for all you guys negotiating contracts this month,
think?
take those points to your nearest scrap broker slash buyer, consumer, and go tell them that you need more money. Have a great day. All
Wait,
right.
wait, wait. Oh, here, let's talk about the steel lead times.
Yes,
So I think
there
I
is a
think
part of my business that I am interested in hearing this.
I sent you a chart and I drew some lines on it, and I think your comments were, you can't draw effing lines. It's cheating.
Because you were cheating me. You were like, look where this thing's going, and you were drawing in your own graph. It's just not right. I mean, I was could have drawn it the other way and sent it back.
Well, so I mean, overall, there's something pretty compelling about this chart. Let's just focus on the black line. We're looking at the lead times of hot roll versus scrap pricing, right?
Yeah,
And this chart doesn't just kind of match up, but anytime the black line goes below scrap pricing, it seems scrap pricing seems to tend to follow,
yeah.
both on the up and down side. So we're at a pinnacle now. It peaked in throughout December, early January, and we'll see what happens. But it sure does feel like $400 shredded. Here we come at some point.
Feels like it definitely feels like you could see it trending that way, right?
Yep.
Depending on the mix, depending on what the mill needs and what they feel like they can, at some point they're gonna have to share in that margin compression, I think.
Yeah. I think, and you got hot roll lead times. That's the light blue line. that the pricing is starting to come the other way too. So it's just telling on actual demand out there. So
Which speaks back to my manufacturing comment earlier.
yeah, and here's hot roll. We're looking at a chart of hot roll futures for the month of February, and you can see these were a lot more at one point, right? And
Yeah.
we've kind of have a we had a what they would call a lower high, right? And in December,
Mm-hmm.
so you got three lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. So another bearish chart for you, Brett.
It was crazy. I mean, you look at it from like October to, I mean, to December. I mean, it damn near doubled, right? Like,
Yeah,
which is wild. The peaks and valleys on that chart are, I mean, I really would love to see what the peaks and valleys look like if you extrapolated that chart out like 5 years, 10 years. Just like, is that a normal swing? Like from
I think
year,
I think there's a saying is if you're a steel trader, you're sitting on a beach somewhere, right? Because volatility is a great thing. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have done very well when it comes to trading steel.
And I feel like those markets are. I mean, that's a big swing. I mean, but it's which
Yeah.
means it tells you like on the, especially on the hot roll side, like there's room for that to come off, and not that that necessarily bodes well for scrap pricing. But the reality of it is you better pay attention if you're on the new steel side.
Yep. Yep. And so volatility, you can lose a lot of money too, right? And so I'm sure people are taking write downs and inventories here over the next quarter. That's for sure. All right. So I got two more charts for you, Brett. This one is the February busheling futures contract, and you can see
Mm,
here. I mean,
that's a
there
good
was some.
move. It's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I figured you like that little bounce at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it might be that like the last. Hopefully, it's not like the last dying breath. Hopefully, it's that next climb back to the 550, 560 range. But it's at
No,
least
that's
trending. It's a bump in the right direction, right?
that's a dead cat bounce if I ever see one.
Well, we're about to find out because it feels like, I mean, somebody bet a serious amount of coin that's the trend that needs to go. That's the way it's going to go.
All right, so here's my last chart, and I think this is the most bearish, and I think this is what a lot of scrap folks are and me too. I've been to a lot of yards throughout the past 30 days, and flows aren't great, right? And even though
Yeah,
that there's a lot of lack of, especially shred feed out there, if you look at this, when you this is just the average, this is Argus's national averages prices. After you factor in the yields, busheling is actually cheaper than shredded at last
yeah.
month's level. So if busheling has more pressure, which it feels like it does, shredded is going to be overvalued. So you could see some mills make adjustments. So it's telling them what could happen in the markets ahead.
This is probably like whenever you put these charts together. Not that I love this one, if I'm honest, but at least I not that I love this month's chart. But this is probably one of the better charts that comes that you put together is it just kind of shows you like what items in your market, and every market's different, so like don't take this for gospel, right? Because every mill carries a different level of inventory for each grade, and maybe some carryover, depends on what they're making for the month, right? So but it's still just kind of a good like top level overview of what markets could be advantageous or unadvantageous for you moving into this month. Like which ones should you maybe look at moving off of? And in this case, like if I read your chart correctly, right? Machine shop turnings probably have the best value for the mill today, and then it goes to like your HMS at number one, right? And then you move into say 5 foot PNS. Then the reason I'm saying this is people that can't see this chart, and then you move into a from a value
Busheling.
standpoint, but you move to bushling, and then you move to shredded, and then pig, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, when you're running really busy at a steel mill, turnings and heavy melt don't make sense. Production makes sense. But
yeah,
when lead times start getting really under that 5 week mark, that's when I think other least cost charges are thought about more.
it was more value driven at that point than say production driven, right? And so those are other considerations. That's why that chart doesn't tell all, but it kind of gives you some insight, and you combine that chart with, say, the lead times chart, and you can kind of start extrapolating what could make sense for the mills at that time.
So did that convince you? Are you a bull? Or are you a bear? Where are you at?
I'm a sideways guy. I'll
All
give
right.
it to you. It's a
Split the
love.
bird. Split the bird.
It's a lover's month. It's a give and take. You know, it's a, it's everybody should win. So I think maybe we're looking at maybe some sideways action.
Well, I just want to let you know I talked to Jake Bronstein, and he is financially committed to get you a bull costume for Israel National because he thinks you'd look great in that thing walking around the floor.
Dude, as long as I get to wear a fucking United States of America flag hat and it has FAFO and I walk around in a bull costume, I'm down. Let's go. My son, to end on this, which has nothing to do with scrap. My son this morning, he was making fun of, he said, Dad, I think you have gray hairs. You have more gray hairs than mom. And I said, Mom dyes her hair. I said, it's fucking cheating. And I said, I'm gonna dye my hair like jet black. And he just laughed at me. He goes, No, Dad, you should dye it pink. Like you should get pink hair. And I said, Okay. I said, you score 20 points and get 20 rebounds in a game, I'll go pink. And he goes, Really? And I said, Yeah. I said, which means you actually have to fucking get 20 rebounds, which means you actually have to put forth some effort out there. So he goes, Okay, done deal. So now I'm cheering against him getting 20 rebounds versus cheering for, because I don't want to walk around with pink hair.
Your bride's gonna say, "Man, you look good in that pink."
You look good in that pink hair. Then if I bring home the bull suit, it'll just be game on. Yeah. Well, thanks,
I
man.
love
I appreciate the information as always, the charts. You guys we'll put the information out there on the newsletter as well. So go follow Chad's stuff. Check his stuff out on LinkedIn. We'll put the charts out on the Recycle 360 newsletter, and we'll see you guys again in March. Have a great day.